Hi everyone, we're back again. After 2 weeks without a Wine Wednesday, we're finally doing another Wine Wednesday. So I thought this would be a good week to do a food and wine pairing Wine Wednesday. So I get the question a lot, how do you pair wine and food? So I think the easiest way to explain it is that I've tried all of the different pairings and I've experimented and I've experienced those flavors and what the food does to the wine when it is a perfect pairing. So that would be my best tip, is just to try different pairings. That aside, you also have, I would say, 4 rules that will help you pair wine and food. So the first one is that the wine should always be more acidic than the food. The second one is that the wine should be sweeter than the food. The third one is that the wine should be the same intensity as the food. So if you have something kind of lower intensity flavors, you want a lower intensity wine. Whereas if you have something with lots of spice, lots of flavor, you want a high intensity wine. And then the fourth rule, I would say probably the most important one, is that you always want to pair your wine with the accompaniments, the sauces, the things with the most flavor on the plate. So you don't always have to pair just with the protein. So you'll see that here today with our pairings here. So what I've done is I've paired our wines by the glass with a couple of the dishes that are currently on our menu. So the first one here is the grilled peach salad. So I've paired this with the Pinot Grigio. So one thing you have to remember when you're pairing, especially with salads, is that of course salads have vinaigrettes, they're very acidic, so you really have to be careful with what you pair it with. Sometimes there really is no pairing if you have, a balsamic vinaigrette. That being said, with this salad specifically, you have the peach, so you get that sweetness from the peach. It has a little bit of a grill on it, so it has a little bit of smokiness. You have the walnuts, which are also candied, and then the vinaigrette itself is actually a honey vinaigrette. So that's going to kind of soften the acidity a little bit, and it will allow the Pinot Grigio to go with it. Pinot Grigio is kind of, a medium acidity. They can go to kind of medium plus acidity. So it definitely can work with vinaigrettes, but this is really a perfect pairing because you get a lot of peach. So the peach will actually be brought out in the wine. So it'll be a really nice pairing there. And then the next dish that we have is the jerk chicken tacos, which are one of our top sellers, and I can tell you they're absolutely delicious. So there is a little bit of spice in this dish. So when you are dealing with a dish that has spice in it, you want to, again, make sure that you have the wine is more acidic, the wine is the same intensity. So Riesling is a very intense wine. It does have a little bit of sweetness as well. So I always say that, and you've heard in my other videos, that spice goes really well with a sweeter wine because it dulls it down. If you go with a really dry wine and you go with spice, it's really just going to make the food really hot and the wine kind of taste hot and take all the fruit away, and it's not going to work. In this case, it will take the sweetness out a little bit. So if you don't really like a sweeter wine, I encourage you to taste it with something that's a little spicier, and you might actually like it more because it makes the wine kind of taste a little drier. Not to mention, this dish also has some pineapple in it as well, which will pull on the flavors of the Riesling. So this really is the perfect pairing. Now, I decided to pair this also with a red because I know that it's selling really well, and some people don't really like to drink white wine, period. So if you are going to pair red wine with something spicy, you want to make sure that it's something not with a lot of tannin. So that's your Pinot Noirs, Barbera would be a good example, Merlot is a good example. So I've paired this with the Merlot as well. This is a California Merlot, very soft, has lots of flavor, has a lot of fruit flavors in it, so it really won't kind of taste bitter when you kind of get that spice in your mouth with the wine as well. So that is your pairing for the jerk chicken tacos. For the salmon dish, so this salmon dish has some mango, cilantro, and lime salsa on it, and then it has a coconut rice. So this is going to go really nicely. So if this salmon dish had a buttery sauce or a creamy sauce, I would definitely go Chardonnay. In this case, because it has all those bright fruit flavors, you really can go with something super aromatic like a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. So that's what we have here. This is our Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc by the glass. So what the pairing is going to do, the coconut rice is going to be a little bit fatty. So the acid in the wine is going to cut through that fat, but it's also going to be accentuated by kind of that mango salsa. So it really is a great pairing. And the other thing that you have to think about when you're talking about wine pairings, there's pairings that are congruent, and there's pairings that are complementary. So a complementary pairing would be something like lime and coconut. So basically everything that the chef has already created in this dish. So lime and coconut are the opposite ends of the scale in terms of flavor. So lime is acidic and coconut is fatty. So they're called complementary pairings. A congruent pairing would be similar to what we're pairing in the next dish. So congruent pairing is something like steak and mushrooms. They have a lot of shared components. They're both savory. They're both kind of earthy. So that's kind of what you're doing with a red wine pairing in this case. So I've paired, of course, your steak. We've paired a Cabernet with it. So a lot of people ask me, or they kind of know already, that Cabernet goes with steak. Why is that? What makes it kind of go? Everybody says, oh, well, tannin and meat. So why is that a thing? Why does everybody know that tannin goes with meat? So there's actually a lot of science behind it, which people don't know, but the molecules in fat and the molecules that are tannins, so tannins are that drying sensation in your mouth, so those molecules actually bond, and what it does is that it releases the flavor of fat. So everyone knows that the fatty pieces in meat are actually the most flavorful. So that's what it does. The tannins actually bond with the fat molecules in your mouth and release a ton of flavor. So that's actually the reason why Cabernet goes so well, or tannic wines go so well with steak. So that is why this goes. We also have a beautiful chimichurri with this steak. Anything with kind of those green, vegetal, any kind of green flavors will go with Cabernet as well, because there is a lot of kind of bell pepper notes in Cab that go really well with that. So here's 4 pairings for you straight off our menu. So I encourage you to try them. I also encourage you to try wines that you might not normally have on your own with dishes that they're supposed to be paired with. It might completely change your opinion on that wine, because the pairing completely transforms the food flavor and the wine flavor. So I hope you enjoy these pairings, and we'll see you again next week for another Wine Wednesday.